The housing crash, worse than anyone ever warned and far beyond anything that any market could correct. Good evening. House prices are falling faster even than during the early 1990s. 2% in a month, 9% in a year. The government's plans to build the promised 3 million houses so urgently needed are tonight in disarray. Even those estates being built are grinding down. Tonight, an unfortunate blip or the overture to a disaster. Is experiencing the fastest decline in house prices since the crash in the 1990s, according to the country's biggest mortgage lender. Figures from the Halifax show houses have lost 6.1% of their value during the past year, and potential buyers are staying away. Building projects across the United Kingdom are also being suspended. The Bank of England has today left interest rates unchanged at 5%. But that does little to help homeowners and borrowers, as our economics correspondent Faisal Islam now reports.
The crunch hammered much deeper today, as the house price meltdown month of May was shown to have continued in June. Barratt Homes became the latest house builder to cut hundreds of jobs. Bravely, this development of 2,000 homes in London's Docklands is proceeding, but Barratt announced it would be signing no new contracts for land, as sales to private buyers slumped 43% in a year. Long-awaited June house price numbers from Britain's biggest mortgage provider, the Halifax, showed 2 consecutive months of the housing market in crash territory. Last month, the average UK house price was just over £180,000. That was down 2% in the last month alone, and nearly 9% lower compared to the same month last year. That's a faster rate of decline than during the early 90s housing crash. Then house price declines touched 8.3% at the end of 1992.
I think the fact that house prices are falling so rapidly does raise some concern about how much further they're going to fall. I think certainly relative to my expectations, I thought that people would maybe be holding on, hoping that actually house prices wouldn't fall. But I think the fact that they've actually fallen quite sharply already suggests that maybe people are just trying to get whatever price they can, and that's probably in anticipation of expecting prices to go down even further.
For over a decade, Britain has been awash with the cranes that symbolise rampant property development. Ramping up house building to 240,000 per year was Gordon Brown's national priority when he assumed office a year ago. That target now seems impossible, as housing projects from Cardiff to Leeds are being axed. Take the Thames Gateway all the way along the River Thames. The government's relying on private sector house builders to build the houses that they say are required to house a rising population. But the private house builders rely on the money men, the bankers, for the funds, and the banking markets are as clogged up as they were 6 months ago. The last thing they're going to lend money to is risky house building in a falling housing market.
The government is sticking by these targets, but I think one of the things we do need to bear in mind is that affordability is not solely driven by price. It's driven by what a person can afford. So we know we can build loads of houses, but if there's no mortgage market there to actually service the purchase of these houses, then building them is just not going to happen. And it's great to have these aspirations, but we need to start getting real, and we need to look at other options other than ownership. I think getting people onto the housing ladder is a great aspiration, but it's just not the right aspiration, I think, for everybody now.
The deliberations of the Bank of England interest rate setting committee saw no respite for the housing market. In the past 10 years, rates have been cut when the economy and the housing markets have looked shaky. Not today, though, and not for some time, as the bank's charts show inflation at an ugly 11-year high. So rates on hold at 5% and little prospect of a property price rescue package from these lot.